Okay, we can begin. I have a whole list of items that we can maybe possibly do tonight. I'm not sure. Whatever we don't manage now, we'll do 3 weeks from now, because I will be away for 2 weeks. Coming back next Wednesday, I think it's on the 16th, of January. I just want to discuss a few items that I left out from last week. We spoke a little bit about tola'im, the prohibition of the insects and bugs that may appear in vegetables, especially the leafy ones. What I didn't explain sufficiently is what happens if you're dealing with large amounts, like for restaurants. Large amounts, crates full of leafy vegetables. It's very difficult to check every one of them. There is something called a hazakah. I'm not sure if I explained it well. Hazakah means that there is a tendency or a preponderance. If you have a large volume of leafy vegetables, the ones that have problems, all you need to do is pick 3 heads. And the 3 heads, remove the outer leaves. The outer leaves usually have a lot of problems. And check every one of the leaves of those 3 heads. They're going to be the test heads. And they should not be washed. They should be checked, unwashed. If none of the 3 heads have any bugs on them, you don't have to check the rest of the shipment, because that's called a hazakah. However, if you find some bugs on one, then you have to check every single one of them. So you pick 3 heads, that will create a hazakah. That will determine if the whole shipment is good or possibly not. Maybe a good deal of it is infested. You choose 3, you remove the outer leaves, then check each leaf of those 3 heads. If they're okay, then of course you need to wash the rest out and remove the outer leaves of each one of them too, but you don't have to check every individual head. You have a hazakah that the rest of the shipment is good. Nevertheless, this is an area that one should be extra careful and not take it for granted. Just because he doesn't see it now, next week he will not see it either. If certain vegetables are known to have problems, one needs to take a look. I only mentioned this idea of hazakah when we're dealing with large volumes. Another brief idea that I left out last week is about bitzim. Normally when we go to the supermarkets, what we buy are chicken eggs. But let's say you're in Africa and somebody wants to serve you an ostrich egg. I mean, how are you going to know if it's a kosher egg or not? So there are ways to recognize if an egg is kosher or not, if it comes from a clean bird or not. If the shape is angular on both ends, then there's a good chance that it's from an unclean bird. You can also inspect the inside. It looks different than a kosher egg. So if you ever have any doubts, of course, don't eat it. We don't have that problem today because most eggs that are sold in the marketplace are chicken eggs. And if it says chicken eggs, then you don't have to check out the egg. Most likely it's a chicken. It comes from a chicken. But there are ways to identify where it came from. Another item, perhaps I might as well mention it now, is the hashud. One who is suspected of not keeping kosher, of not eating kosher, one cannot rely on him. One cannot buy from him. Let's say he has a grocery store or some shop where he sells all sorts of non-kosher food items. Then we cannot rely on him and trust him if he says that something is kosher or not. If he himself is not makpid, is not careful what he eats or what he sells, then he cannot be a witness. He cannot give testimony on that which he's not careful himself. And this is important as well if you're invited to someone's home. There are many issues that one needs to consider. Do these people know what a kosher kitchen is all about? How to separate milk from meat? That there's a need to check for bugs? That there's a need for tevilat kelim, to immerse newly purchased vessels that were manufactured by non-Jew. They need to be immersed in a tevilah. And there's some other issues that we're going to be discussing today that especially apply if one is living in Eretz Israel. One needs to determine if all of these things are okay. Otherwise, how does one know if he can eat that at that home? So a person who's hashud, who we know that he has a tendency to be lax, he's not careful, or he totally doesn't care about this, he doesn't believe in anything, then of course we cannot rely on or trust what he says. Today, we're going to be doing quite a few items, but I want to begin with the last one first. Davhara asur mishum sakana. As I said, I think in the introduction to this series, there are some items that are prohibited because they're dangerous to one's health. And rabbis tell us, Hamira sakanta miisura. If something is prohibited because it's dangerous, it's much more serious and more severe than if it would just prohibit it because it's a sur. Because the Torah or the rabbi said it was a sur. Sakanta hamira is much more serious because you're endangering your life. What difference does it make? It makes a difference if you have any doubt as to if something is dangerous or not. Well, you're not going to take your chance. If something is a safek, if it's a sur or not, so we have rules. If it's a safek de rabbanan, if it's prohibited by rabbinical decree, maybe it could be eaten. But if it's a safek d'oraita, if it's something that is prohibited by the Torah, then it's lehumra. So we need to determine what the source of this safek is. If it's dangerous to one's health, then obviously you don't want to take a chance. So that is what we're going to be discussing. There are various items that are prohibited because it's a sakana. It's dangerous to one's health, and as a result of that, one must be very careful with them. One example, which was very prevalent in the days of the Gemara, was dvarim shenitgalu, food or drinks that were left in the open overnight, not in a container, especially drinks, especially wine, milk, or water. There was always a possibility that a snake drank from these liquids, and as it drank from them, it left its poison inside. Now it would be dangerous to drink from. So any liquids that were left uncovered for some time would be prohibited to drink from in areas where there would be snakes. Since we don't live in areas that there are snakes, we don't have that problem. But there are other problems. One, it's not advisable to leave any uncovered food item outside overnight because of ruach ra'ah, because of a bad spirit, an unclean spirit, an impure spirit that is prevalent at night. So that is the custom of not to leave anything uncovered, even in your kitchen. Put it in your refrigerator, cover it in something. No, put it into a container. If it's in the refrigerator, it's better because it's enclosed in some sort of box. Some say that you should even be careful from leaving out any wet fruit or vegetables that have been cut or sliced, like watermelon, in areas that there were animals, poisonous animals, who may bite into it. But that is not a concern to us. The real concern to us is as follows: not to put any food or drink under a bed, even if it's covered, underneath the bed. What? Outside, to leave it outside covered is fine. If you're going to leave it overnight outside and it's covered, it's okay. It's not a big problem. The bigger problem is putting any food underneath your bed because of the ruach hatum'ah that resides over it. So that is something that many people are unaware of. Most people don't do these things, put food underneath their bed, unless they're trying to hide a snack from their wife, maybe. I don't know, grab it, that could happen. But why would somebody put something underneath the bed? Yes. It's like a shelf. Still, it would not be a good idea to put any food underneath the bed. And that is the halakha. If somebody did, it's not asur, but it's advisable not to put anything underneath because there's tum'ah. Another area that some people are unaware of is if you've cut onion or garlic or peeled an egg, you cannot leave them outside overnight unless you left a little bit of the shell of the egg or a little bit of the peel of the onion or garlic or the head of it. Also because of problems with the ruach ra'ah and the like. Things that they were much more strict about during the days of the Gemara, and some say many of these things don't apply today. Nevertheless, we are careful with some of these things. If somebody left them, peeled an egg, peeled a complete onion, in other words, left nothing, none of the peel of the garlic or the onion, it's okay, you could eat it, but I'm giving you examples of those items that the rabbis tell us to be careful with. So has anything ever happened recently to somebody who ate it? I can't tell you. I don't know. Because we don't investigate every time something happens to someone because he ate something. Maybe it was uncooked, it was raw, maybe it was spoiled. I mean, there could be all sorts of reasons of why people get sick. But ruach hatumah is something to reckon with. It's a spirit, an impure spirit. And that is why we wash our hands in the morning. And that is why we don't touch food before we wash our hands. So these are things that are asurim mipnei sakana. That is what the rabbis consider. These things can cause problems. They can hurt. They can harm because of the ruach hatumah, ruach ra'ah. However, I'm going to get into the ones that are much more reasonable, the ones that we can all understand, and which apply at all times. And one is not to put coins into your mouth, because coins were probably touched by many, many people. A lot of people handle the coins, and it could have all sorts of diseases. So you don't want to put coins into your mouth. Who puts coins into their mouth? I don't know. No, children, I don't know, want to taste it, want to see what it feels like. People who are, I don't know, maybe they're counting how many they have. I have no idea, but you have to be careful with not putting coins into your mouth. Another area to be careful with is sweat. Sweat is poisonous, except for one type of sweat. Anybody know which sweat is not poisonous? The sweat of your forehead. How do we know? Because the Torah says, "Beze'at apecha tochal lechem." In other words, you will eat bread with the sweat, right, of your brow, right? So Torah says you will eat bread, even though that's more allegoric, telling you that you're going to have to work hard for a living. Nevertheless, the rabbis tell us that sweat is permissible. In other words, there's no problem with it. It's not unhealthy. But the other parts of the body, the sweat is very unhealthy. Let's say you drank a soda can, and there's half left over. The rabbis tell us don't give that soda can, the half that's left over, to your friend, because some people are very sensitive. They will not drink from that which somebody else drank from. It will bother them. It will hurt them, perhaps. They're what's called an istiness. They're very sensitive, so you want to not do that and not assume that everybody's okay with that. If you drank from it, pour out a little bit or clean it up before you give it to someone else. You may not want to drink from it. All right, another one: not to walk by yourself at night. Even though this has nothing to do with food, I might as well list to you some of the things the rabbi said are dangerous to do. Not to walk by yourself at night, anywhere. It's dangerous not to put yourself in any other dangerous situation. For example, entering a house that is about to fall apart. Right? It may collapse at any moment. Also not. Or to drink from the rivers at night, from running water at night in the rivers. Some people just put their heads down and drink. That it's dangerous to do it at night, and I don't want to get into it right now. The whole subject in itself of what happens at night, what goes on at night. So this later on.
Kabbalistic?
No, it's not Kabbalistic. It has to do with demons. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, you have to be careful from certain things. So the rabbis have a whole list, and we don't have time to go through the whole list of things that one has to be very, very careful. And they told us there are three individuals especially you have to be careful at all times, and they need shemirah. They need to be protected. A hatan, one who just recently got married. Chole, what? Someone who's sick. He has to be very careful. And even a Talmid Chacham, some say, a rabbi has to be careful where he goes. He's going by himself. There's certain people that need shemirah. Some say yoledet, a woman that just gave birth. They need extra care. They shouldn't be by themselves.
Day and night?
No, especially at night. Yeah. No, outside. But in the house, one should not sleep by himself in any one house. Any house. You should never be by yourself at night in a house. It's always best to be with someone else. This is not asur, this is just good advice.
What if you're very thirsty? You have to go to, say, the river or whatever to drink from.
Right.
You gotta wait till the morning time? Is that what you're suggesting? To shake it?
No, there's a way to do it. Not directly with your mouth. That was the main advice. Exactly. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of things that people are knowingly, they know these things are prohibited and they do it nevertheless. The rabbis tell us one has to be careful because asur adam la'adbet atzmo ladad, a person is not allowed to commit suicide. And if you commit suicide intentionally, knowingly, en lo chelek l'olam haba, he does not have a share to the world to come. So these are things that one has to be aware of as much as possible. If they're very dangerous, he should not intentionally do them. Rabbis furthermore say, Hakol bidei shamayim, chutz mitzinim pachim. Most diseases that come about are bidei shamayim. Kadosh Baruch Hu has prescribed a particular disease for some reason to an individual, but he does not prescribe colds and flus. These come by not being careful. The person does not dress well, does not eat well, in other words, he can harm himself. He can bring about certain diseases that the person is at fault for bringing it upon himself. It's not that Hashem sent him, the cold or the flu. You didn't take care of yourself. So one has to take care of himself. Another item that we've covered in Basar B'Chalab that is dangerous to one's health is to cook fish and meat together. Alright? That's dangerous. The reason why it's prohibited is not because there's some prohibition, there's something wrong with it. It's simply dangerous.
Therefore, some people have the tradition of washing their hands after having eaten fish before they eat meat. Some drink something, schnapps. Some eat something, like bread, in between the two. There's no obligation to do so, but it's a good thing. It's a good habit to at least drink or eat something in between fish and meat.
Separation.
To have some sort of separation.
Not even on the same plate. Not for a piece of the fish.
No, of course not. Yeah. Now, some people are wise Alex. Is that the right word? Wise guys? Smart Alex. Right? That's what it is. Same thing. You know what they say? Kadosh Baruch Hu will protect me. He will make a miracle for me. What happens is that, first of all, Hashem may not make the miracle. And if He does, and you rely, and they had to perform a miracle for you, then they will remove from your merits. They had to use up some of your merits to perform this miracle to you. So don't rely on miracle, number one. Number two, if they did perform the miracle as a result of putting yourself in danger, some of the merit that one has will be removed as a result of that. So it's not a good idea to rely on miracles. Yeah.
Means you need to wear a seatbelt.
That's right. You should wear a seatbelt, sure. Another thing which is dangerous is to chop down a fruit tree. If you have a fruit tree in your backyard, it's giving fruit, you can't chop it down unless you need the room because you're adding a room addition perhaps. You're building something. It's blocking your way. Then it's okay. But to just chop it down is dangerous. People have lost children after having chopped down a fruit tree. So I'm just letting you know that is what's brought down. This is very serious. This is not like the other ones, Ruach Ra'ah, Shedim, where you can take a chance. This one is very serious. Yes. Yes, but you have to be careful. You can move it to another spot. You have to do your best. I advise you to do it through a goy, not to do it yourself. If you're going to move a tree, okay? Not any other tree. Our tradition is with a fruit tree because a fruit tree has life. And the Torah is concerned about just chopping something down for no reason. And it's not just about tashchit, which means destroying something for no reason. Obviously, a fruit tree has more value. I mean, it's not a good idea to just throw away anything you have, clothing, or anything that has value. It's called bal tashchit. You don't just tear things up, destroy things up for no reason. But a fruit tree is a lot more serious.
Even in fruit stores?
What is that?
Even in fruit stores?
Anywhere in the world. Yeah. Bal tashchit means not to destroy for no reason. All right, another one is if a person has to go to the restroom, he should not hold himself back, especially to urinate, because that could be dangerous to one's health. If one needs to go and he doesn't go, it can cause him a lot of problems. A lot of diseases, the rabbis tell us, come about as a result of people holding themselves back when they really should go to relieve themselves, especially with urine. That is apparently for some reason more dangerous than the other. So that is why the rabbis permitted it even in public. If you have to go, don't ask questions. Stop anywhere and just go. Because it's dangerous to one's health to hold himself back, especially if one does it regularly. It can cause all sorts of diseases.
Even in the middle of the field.
Yes, you have to go, you go. You stop. Okay, I think we can go on to the next ones. Yes?
You have to take the film and you put them.
Yeah, whenever you have to remove, because you can't take them into that room,
Right.
Then you make a bracha. A talit you don't have to, because you can take theoretically your talit inside. Yeah. There was a hesech hadat if you separated yourself. You put your mind aside from it. In other words, stop, you interrupted, you did something else, you go back, make the blessing. Alright, now we're going into Trumot and Ma'asrot. This is a very complex area, and it mostly applies to Eretz Israel. If you're living in Eretz Israel, you need to be familiar with this area. Because part of having a good ashgacha, part of having a good supervision on a product, part of determining if something is kosher is not only if the ingredients are kosher, not only that it's bug-free, but if it's in Eretz Israel, that all the trumot and ma'asrot have been removed. Otherwise, it's not kosher. There's a problem with it. So when you see a good ashgacha in Israel, you will see that it says in Hebrew that they have removed trumot and ma'asrot. Another seal may say, En bo chashash shel shavi'it. There's no problem of shavi'it, which we'll talk about next. So there are various other items to be concerned about if you're buying something, especially in Israel, to determine if it's 100% kosher. Right? You're buying orange juice. What could be wrong with orange juice? But in Eretz Israel, there could be problems of trumot and ma'asrot. On something like orange juice. So other than being kosher because the ingredients are kosher, In Eretz Yisrael, there are various other issues. And we need to be aware of it here too, because we have products from Eretz Yisrael that come here. We want to make sure that there's no problem, not with Hadash, not with Kil'ayim, Orla, Shevi'it. There are various ideas that may apply. Some of them apply here too. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Trumot Ma'asrot. Truma means to remove or to lift a portion of the crop. When we say the crop, we mean, Midoraita, we mean any of the 5 grains, plus grapes and olives, or the wine and the olive oil. Midrabanan, by rabbinical decree, it also applies to other fruits and vegetables. A portion would be removed and given to the Kohanim, to the priests. And it would be very holy. The Truma is very holy. If a person eats it, who's not, is chayav mita b'dei shamayim. It's a very serious sin. Kohen too, he would have to be clean to eat it. Today, because Kohanim are not clean, what do? We don't give it to the Kohen, we destroy it. So according to the Torah, Truma only needs to be a small portion. One fruit. Let's say you have a kibbutz and you have oranges or peaches. All you need to do is remove one, just mashu, and you have fulfilled the mitzvah of Truma. And I'll tell you what you do in a moment.
What's the purpose?
I'm going to get into that. Originally, the purpose was to give it to the Kohen. These would be matanot, the gifts that you would give to the Kohanim or Leviim. No, today it doesn't have. Today it's Midrabanan. Then you have Maaser. Maaser is a tithe that is given to the Leviim. A tithe, in other words, 10% of what's left over you would give to the Levi. Today, nobody can say for sure that he's a Levi. He can't prove it. So the Levi doesn't end up getting the Maaser. After we've removed it, we can put it back and anybody can eat it. But the reason why the Maaser is removed, 10% is removed of a particular bunch of fruit or vegetables, is in order for us to remove what's called the Trumat Maaser. The Trumat Maaser is what the Levi in the olden days would take. He would take a portion of that Maaser that he received and give it to the Kohen. So that Trumat Maaser plus the Truma is holy in a sense, and it cannot be eaten today, so it is destroyed. So what I've done here is I put up a little bit of some square, which is divided into 100 pieces. On top, I put a little block, I guess you can call it, that signifies Truma. In other words, Truma is a mashu. All you need to do is remove a little bit. So if you take a little bit besides what you have, you take a little bit more, and you designate, and you have to designate which spot in this whole amount that you have of fruits and vegetables is going to be teruma. There's a whole prayer, there's a whole nusach that is said, including the blessing when you're being mafrish trumot u'maasrot, prior to doing so. So those who are living in Eretz Yisrael, who have any doubt whether trumot and maasrot were removed from a particular food, they would have to go through what we're going through now. So you may not be familiar with this because we don't come across this in Chutz La'aretz here in America. But in Israel, they all need to be aware of this. And they all have a special coin that I'm going to discuss about in a moment. Special coin that is used in this process too. So the first thing that is removed is a mashu, that's called the teruma. You designate where it is. Then you separate the maaser, and you say that, you see this corner over here? This portion is going to be maaser plus 9 additional parts. This portion, this corner, is going to be maaser. This 1 of 100 is going to be maaser, plus 9 additional parts. Altogether, 10 parts will be maaser. Once you've separated the maaser, you remove that 1 of 100, and you consider that trumat maaser, which is what the Levi would take and give to the Kohen. That trumat maaser plus the truma itself is a surah, has to be destroyed. So there are people today in Eretz Yisrael who are in charge. A cousin of mine, that's all he does. His job is to remove the trumot and maasrot. He gets a whole bunch of oranges or fruits or other vegetables, and his job is to make sure that trumot and maasrot have been taken. Everything has been done properly. Otherwise, it cannot be sold in the marketplace. This is an important mitzvah. So this truma, which is a mashu, plus this 1 of 100, is a trumat maaser. That has been removed. The maaser has been designated for the Levi, but the maaser can be eaten. After we remove the Trumat Maaser, the Maaser, which is a tithe, can be eaten because today a Levi cannot prove that he's a Levi. and it's not holy, and it can be sold, of course. So the maaser can be eaten, sold, after you remove the trumat maaser. So the only thing that is destroyed over here is the truma and the trumat maaser. Those two items therefore have to be removed. So we remove the truma, which is a mashu, just a little bit, even one fruit. We remove the maaser, of which one portion is the trumat maaser. Okay, so you have 10%. From whatever you have left, you would remove maaser sheni or maaser ani, depending what year you're holding in the cycle of 7 years. If it's year 1, 2, 4, and 5, you would remove something called maaser sheni. If it's years 3 and 6, you would remove something called maaser ani. Maaser ani would be, or whatever is left over, 10%, which would only be 9 portions, right? Because we no longer have 100. So we only have 9 portions to remove from maaser ani. Give it to the poor man. But what do we do with maaser sheni? Maaser sheni, during the time that we had a Bet HaMikdash, a temple, it was holy. You would take it to Yerushalayim and eat it there. You cannot eat it in your backyard at home if you live somewhere else outside of Yerushalayim. So it's yours, but you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. Today, because we don't have this procedure, what do? You have to redeem or exchange the maaser sheni in a coin. So everybody in Israel, or many people in Israel, have a special coin that they use to exchange any maaser sheni and something called neta revai, which we'll discuss in a moment, onto that coin. Once that coin fills up with a certain amount of exchanges that you can exchange on it, depending on how much that coin is worth, how much silver, what the value of it is, once it's filled up, you exchange that coin, or all the exchanges that you've made on that coin onto another coin, so you can always keep that designated coin. And that coin which you've just exchanged, you throw it away, throw it in the ocean. Did you understand what I just said? There's one coin that's designated, and that coin which is designated to redeem or exchange the maaser sheni and something called neta revai is always the same coin. You make that exchange because you can't, so you can eat your fruit. And now that maaser sheni is in the coin. Once that coin fills up with the many exchanges, with the limited amount of exchanges that it could have, depending on its value, then you exchange that coin with another coin, because you don't want to throw away your original coin. You want to keep the original coin to continuously use it, because it's designated for these exchanges. So when it fills up, you put that maaser sheni, which is filled into that coin, into another coin, and that coin is destroyed or thrown away.
So you don't have access to those 9?
No, so if it's during the years 3 and 6, which is maaser ani, then that goes to a poor man, to the poor. But if it's years 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, and 5, it's called maaser sheni. You could eat it after you've exchanged it and put that maaser sheni into a coin. Even though it's a lot more valuable than your coin, it's permissible to make that exchange into a coin. Once that coin fills up, you exchange it with another coin. In other words, you transfer all of the maaser into another coin, which you destroy, and you keep your original coin to use it every year for exchanges. Yeah, it has to have some value. So. No, the new one, no. As long as it has value. No, it has to have a certain amount of value. Yeah. In other words, that you could weigh in silver. In other words, is it 1 gram of silver? What's the worth of? So you can calculate. So in order for you to be able to calculate, no, it's preferably it should be from silver. Sure. Yeah, sure it could be. Yeah, but it should be a real coin. It shouldn't be just a raw silver. Yeah. Yeah. To any other coin,
So
right?
You end up with a different coin.
You end up with a different coin.
Not your coin.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And once you've transferred over, you can use your original designated coin again for future years.
What do you mean your original?
Because you designated one coin.
One that you just gave up.
Right. Once it fills up, you transfer it over into another coin.
But now you have a new coin.
That new coin you throw away, you destroy it. You don't want to destroy your original coin. That's your coin that you've used to designate, to make the exchanges with. You have one designated coin.
Then you get rid of it.
Yeah. I remember I used to have a dime. I used to use a dime when I was in Israel, and I would put it in the back of my talit, tefillin. If I needed it, I would always use it in case it would ever happen. It wouldn't happen often because hopefully if there was a good hashgacha, they took care of everything. But if you suspect you're eating over someone's house and you don't know if he took trumot ma'asot of the food that he bought or that he grew, you need to do it yourself. And there's problems when these things haven't been done and you're Shabbat. Shabbat, you cannot take trumot ma'asot. It becomes an issue. It has to be done before Shabbat. And if you know you can't do it before Shabbat, there's a way to do it on Shabbat too. But I don't want to get into all the details because we're not in Israel right now.
You're talking about if you eat over somebody's house who grows,
Or who buys food from a place where they did not remove Trumot and Maasrot. Let's say you go to a grocery store. You go now to Israel, and you want to buy some peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, right? Fruit. You want to shop. You want to make sure it said there's a sign there that Trumot and Maasrot were removed. You see what I mean? That's usually we're not used to it. Fruits and vegetables. What's wrong? There's nothing unkosher about them. Yes, there is in Israel. In Israel, you have to determine if that shop takes care of Trumot and Maasrot. And soon we'll talk about the other issue, the issue of Shevi'it. Yes. Minat Torah, Trumot and Maasrot only apply to the 5 grains, plus Tirosh v'Yitzhar, which is grapes and olives, or the juice of them, the wine and olive oil. Midrabanan, it applies to all the fruits and vegetables. Trumot and Maasrot today are taken Midrabanan for all fruits and vegetables. So even though today it's not the same as it was back then, still we still have this requirement in Eretz Israel only. So once you've removed everything, how much do you have left? 81 parts that are called chulin. Chulin means it can be eaten by everybody. That would be permissible. That would be completely permissible. But the rest has been removed, or if it's Maaser Sheni, it has been exchanged into a coin. Okay, so this is an area that most people in Chutz do not have to deal with. But if you come to Israel, you have to be aware of it. So now you're going to eat some falafel. What do you have to be concerned about? You're going to eat falafel in Israel. What do you have to be concerned about? First of all, the hummus. Did he check it for bugs, for worms? Yeah. Number 1. Number 2, the salad, right, that they chop up, the tomatoes. Was it bought from a place which removes Trumot and Maasrot? Right? You follow me? So if he has a good Ta'udat Kashrut, a good certificate of Kashrut, it should say on it, that everything is okay, we've checked everything, he's reliable, he checks his vegetables for bugs, this is, has no problem of Shevi'it, which I'll talk about soon, Trumot and Maasrot. Yes. Same thing, if you buy a can of pickles from Israel, from a kibbutz, you will see on it, it says on the can, Be'ashgachat so and so, lelo chashash Shevi'it, there's no problem with it. Well, you have to ask somebody that understands that. I don't think they have that supervision or those words in English. I've only seen it in Hebrew. Yeah.
What's the problem? You eat a bug. What is the equivalent of eating a bug compared to?
Eating a bug is much more serious than eating ham.
Really?
Yeah, people don't know that. If you eat ham, you are transgressing 1 lav. If you eat a bug, you can be transgressing 4, 5, or 6, depending on the bug. No, not basar v'chalab. Talking about tola'im, shkatzim urumasim, insects, bugs, worms, is a much more serious transgression than eating ham. Believe it or not, people are shocked when I say it, but it's a fact. You're used to ham, hazir, pig, being an unclean animal. Well, it happens to be that the Torah only has 1 lav, which is bad enough. It's bad enough, of course, to eat anything which is tarif. But bugs, yitushim, many of them have more than 1 lav. More than 1 transgression. When one eats them, he's transgressing several. Because the Torah in various places,
What's the law?
there are various lavim, which the Torah in various places says that this is prohibited, and this is prohibited, and it uses different language, different wording for every one of those lavim. So the rabbis learn out from that each one is a separate lav, is an independent lav. And it's not just 1 lav. So certain bugs have 4, some 5, some 6 transgressions, depending on what they are, if one were to eat them. So it's...
So is there something like in the Kabbalah that says specifically?
Now your question is why?
Why?
Why? Because obviously bugs are...
What's that, fly or...
Bugs are bad for you, right? It's as I explained, I believe, last week, zemetamtenta sechel. It stupefies the mind. It has a certain impurity to them that apparently is harmful in ways that we don't understand. It could also be that the Torah was serious about it because people are not careful enough. They might think it's small, what's the big deal? And they would not be as careful. So the Torah came out very harsh on that, saying you are transgressing a very serious lav, and don't take it easily. There's going to be more than 1. There's going to be 4, 5, or 6 lavim that you're transgressing. So there are reasons, other reasons that we don't know possibly.
What punishment for turning?
Lashes. One does not get the death penalty for that, but it's still a sin. It's still prohibited. It's still one of the 613 commandments. But obviously there's no death penalty for it. It's not like one of those that you get the death penalty. Nevertheless, it's still a very serious offense. Yes.
Nowadays,
It's always Midoraita. Basar v'chalav is always Doraita. Just one. Usually you're only transgressing one. Sometimes there are two. This is a very unusual situation with bugs, that there are more. No, it makes no difference because the rabbis say that the fact that it's repeated, we learn out from that one is Isur Achila, one is Isur Bishul, and one is Isur Hana'ah. In other words, you cannot benefit from it, you cannot eat it, and you cannot cook it. So there is a prohibition for each one separate, that is why it's repeated. But over here it's repeated for a different reason altogether, to add additional transgressions. Usually when something is repeated, there's no necessarily an additional transgression. In here there is, for some reason. Yes, that's right. Yeah. All right, the next area is Shevi'it. Shevi'it is a sabbatical year. As you know, in the sabbatical year, the Shemitah year, work cannot be performed in the field, except if it's work related to saving the fields from drying up completely. There are certain things you can do to save it. But if it's to improve, to enhance, or to plant, of course, new crop, that is completely prohibited. So in Eretz Israel today, the year of Shemitah, whoever observes it, he takes a year off. He rests because there's very little for him to do in the field. He cannot plant. He cannot plow his field. He cannot chop or prune or trim if it's to enhance the trees in the field or his crop in any way. There's nothing wrong with the fruit. You could eat it. As long as, if it's a fruit that grew as a result of planting or sowing on Shemitah, then you cannot eat that fruit. The etrogim that grew on the 7th year were planted in the 6th year. First of all, they weren't planted, but the tree was there a long time. So with trees, first of all, with trees, you don't have the problem. Why? What's a tree? A tree is there all the time. It reproduces fruit all the time. So you don't have to do anything, right? And there will be, hopefully there's enough rain, there will be fruit. The fruit that grew without any involvement on your part is mutar. The only thing that is asur to eat is what they call sfihim. Sfihim is little things that grow by themselves. All of a sudden they grow, including vegetables. If they grew on the year of Shemitah, they are prohibited. Why? Because the rabbis were concerned maybe somebody planted them. Because vegetables are not perennials, they're annuals. You always have to reseed them. So how did it happen that it grew? So there are certain herbs or certain things that grow by themselves. But because it's a possibility also that somebody planted, the rabbis wanted to discourage that nobody should plant. They said anything that grew by itself is asur. So therefore we have a hard time finding vegetables in Israel, not fruit, but vegetables, unless you buy it from the Arabs. Because that which grew on Arab land has an exemption. There's some, of course, that allow an exemption to sell the land to the Arabs, but we don't do that. It's always best either to import from outside of Israel, which makes the fruit and vegetables much more expensive during that year, or to buy directly from the Arabs, on true Arab-grown land. So anything that was planted during that year would be asur. So the isur of Shevi'it means that you cannot grow anything on that year, and if you did, the product of that is asur. But if it's a tree, and it's there a whole time, and fruits grow, etrogim grow, then you could eat it. There's no problem with it. You just have to be careful with Shevi'it, because it has kedusha. It has to be treated right. You cannot destroy it. Anybody who has a field, by the way, in Eretz Israel in the year of Shemitah, according to the Torah, he has to make his field of care. Anybody can walk in and take fruit. He's not the owner. He's not the owner of the fruit, and he cannot do business with the fruit. So how do they sell etrogim? They sell it together with the lulav. You see, if you sell it together with something else, then it's permissible. So you cannot do business with the fruit of Shevi'it. You don't have to send back the etrogim. You could eat it yourself. Make jelly from it. Yes, you can eat it. Anything from Shemitah, you can eat as long as you did not plant it or make it grow then. If there was a tree there all the time and the fruits come out without your intervention, then it's perfectly fine. Yes.
If you're going through the lettuce and you find 3 or 4 bugs and they're alive, and you purposely kill them,
Okay. No, you can remove the bugs, you can destroy it.
But it's okay to.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, you could wash them out and let them go too. But
is there a problem?
there's no prohibition to kill bugs. No.
Really?
Yeah. Except on Shabbat, that's correct. On Shabbat, if you have a spider, just show him the way to the door. You know, that's what I do. I bring out the broom, I open the door, and I move slowly until I chase it out.
Right, but for example, you just, for no reason, want to kill an animal, any kind of animal, a dog.
One should not,
anything.
One should not destroy anything for no reason. For no reason whatsoever. Exactly, unless there's a reason. Unless there's a cockroach there, and your wife is going to give you a hard time with that.
Is that a reason?
Yeah. What?
Is that a reason?
That's a good reason. You believe it? You're married? Yeah, of course, right? Yeah. Yeah. What?
Technique, like kill a cockroach?
Yeah. Yeah. What is that? No, it's not about Tashkik. No. All right. So anyway, so that is the concern that we have with Shevi'it. If you're living in Eretz Israel, you have to be concerned about fruit that has grown during that year. Did they take care of this problem? Was it handled correctly, properly according to the halakha or not? So when you're buying food in Eretz Israel, it will say, "En bo chashash shel Shevi'it." It has no concerns for Shevi'it, has no concerns for Trumot and Maasrot, and so forth. Anything that grew by itself, because it was a tree. The tree is always there. If it continues to give fruit, it's mutar. You could eat it. Vegetables, no. Because vegetables, the rabbi said, we're afraid that he may have planted them. Because vegetables cannot be from last year. It can only be if he seeded it this year. But otherwise, there would be no problem if it grew by itself. Just like the fruits.
They can sell it, the farmer can cut the fruit and sell it to the market.
No, you cannot sell it to the market.
Oh, that's what it says. Because you can eat it, but you cannot sell it.
You cannot do any business with perot shevi'it. But there are ways. Yeshnam drachim. There are ways on how to arrange for the sale of some of the fruit, or to do it second hand and not directly. There are ways to do it. But even then, it's not done in the same way that it's done every year. Because in reality, it's a hefker. Everybody can take. Everybody can come into the field and eat. Yeah. Yeah.
My brother said, it's orange, because it's not the same one.
That's right. So there are certain restrictions, and when one is in Eretz Israel, he has to be aware of these. But this only happens once every 7 years. Trumot and Maasrot is every single year, except for Maaser Sheni, Maaser Ani, which alternate depending on the year. Yeah. Yes. Yes, you should try to make something out of it by Tu B'Shvat. That's correct. Yes, before. Yes. Something like that. That's right. Okay. The next one is Orla. When we discussed the 613 commandments, we explained a little bit what the idea behind Orla is. Now I'll just briefly go through it. Every tree, regardless of where you are, in Israel or Chutz La'aretz, the first 3 years that it bears fruit, one cannot eat those fruit. So if you just came back from a nursery, you're all excited, you just bought a plum tree, and you just planted it. The first 3 years you can't enjoy it, unless that tree is already 2 years old and you have 1 year to go. But the first 3 years that a tree bears fruit, a new tree, one cannot eat from those fruits. It's called Orla. And I'm not going to get into explanations now why. If that's the fact, it's a sur. Now, Chutz La'aretz, when we buy fruits, we don't know whether it's Orla or not. Even if it belongs to a goy. But we don't know. We don't ask him. Is it the 3rd year, the 4th, or the 5th year? So it's mutar. If it's a safek for us, if we're in doubt here in Chutz La'aretz, it's not our tree, it's permissible for us to eat, because by the way, most fruits are not anyway from the first 3 years. First 3 years, usually the fruit is small. Many trees don't give that many fruit during the first 3 years. So most fruit are beyond the first 3 years anyway.
When you say the first 2 years, if it doesn't bear fruit for the first 2 years,
As long as it's capable of bearing fruit.
like avocado trees generally don't bear fruit.
No, the first 3 years that it bears the fruit, that it can bear fruit.
So that could be 5 years.
No. Initially.
It doesn't bear fruit for 2 years.
Well, we're not talking about a small little seedling, right? No, you plant a tree,
5 foot tree.
right?
Yeah.
Right?
I planted an avocado tree, it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the 4th year I can
Right,
get the fruit?
no problem, right. The first 3 years, it can begin to give fruit. And all trees could. Some take longer, some take less. So As long as it could give fruit, and they usually do, those first 3 years would be asur. So therefore, if you have trees in your backyard, you have to be concerned. You have to be aware of this, whether in Israel or in Chutz La'aretz. The first 3 years, you would not be able to eat from them.
What's the short version? Why?
There's no short version. Yeah, there's something. It has something to do with orla, and orla is something which is blocking the tree. Just like orla on the male is when we circumcise the male, we remove the orla. So it's like a blockage, something that's covering up. So this is also something that's covering up the tree and like restraining us for reasons that I can't go into right now, that are more Kabbalistic and mystical. That for the first 3 years, it's untouchable. Yeah. We covered that already over the we did the 613 mitzvot.
3 years to life,
Well, it's doraita, sure. Orla, yeah. So this applies everywhere. The next one, Neta Revai, only applies in Israel today, and that is the 4th year. The 4th year in California or anywhere in Chutz La'aretz is permissible for one to eat the fruits of the 4th year. But in Israel, you would have to use the coin, the same coin that we use for Maaser Sheni. The fruit of the 4th year would be eaten in Yerushalayim. So today, because we don't do that, we do the exact same thing that we do with Maaser Sheni. We designate a coin where we exchange the fruits onto this coin, so in order for us to be able to eat these fruits. No, you don't throw it away. You use it for a couple of years until it's filled up with the amount that you can exchange it. What is that? אחרי שהמטבע מתמלא, מעבירים את הקדושה מתמלא. In other words, after you've used it many, many times, every time the worth of a peruta. So depending on what coin you're using, if it's $1 has 100 pennies, right? So you could use it maybe 100 times, depending on the value of the penny today. Doesn't really have that much value. No. You designated a coin which you never throw away. After it has filled up, in other words, after you've used it, the number of times that you are allowed to use it, depending on the value of the coin. Because every exchange has to have some value, right? So depending what coin you use, an expensive coin, you may be able to use it 100 times or more, depending on how much value that coin has. Once you've used it up for your 100 exchanges, you transfer those exchanges that are in that coin into some other coin that you're going to throw away because you can't benefit from it. And you're left with your original coin to use again another 100 times. See what I mean? So once you fill up that coin with as many exchanges as you are allowed to, you transfer it into another coin which will be, and it needs to be destroyed. Yeah. So that's done from Maaser Sheni and Neta Revai. Alright, I don't know how much more time we have. Maybe we'll cover, let's see, Kil'ayim. Kil'ayim are those forbidden mixtures that apply, some of them apply in Israel and some of them apply in Chutz La'aretz, where you cannot grow certain vegetables too close to each other, or vegetables close to grapes and the like. Or this also includes, by the way, grafting. One is not allowed to graft two different species of trees together. So let's say somebody grafted two trees together and a fruit came out. For example, a nectarine, they say, is a fruit that has been grafted from peaches and plums. They say that the original grapefruit is also a fruit that's been grafted. There are many fruits out there that have been grafted. Even though it's prohibited for us to graft, to combine two species of trees together, the byproduct of the grafting is not asur. So if somebody did it anyway, somebody that did not know, or a goy, you could benefit from the fruit. That is not the case with regular kil'ayim. Regular kil'ayim, especially kil'ei hakerem, anything that grew too close to grapes, to a vine, like certain seeds and vegetables, the combination, in other words, that area where they came in close contact would be forbidden to eat. It would have to be destroyed. It would be asur even behana'ah. So these are concerns for people who are in the agriculture business. Most of us do not, unless we're growing vegetables, and vegetables is no problem in Chutz La'aretz, but in Eretz Israel you would have to know what distance to maintain between the various vegetables that you're growing. And especially if you have grapes, you for sure have to be careful and be concerned about that even more. But in Chutz La'aretz we don't have the problem of maintaining a distance of vegetables. But you still have to be careful with grapes. Even here. You have to be careful, even here with grafting, two trees together, branch from this and a branch to that. You know how you graft. to combine to create something new, you cannot do that. Or by putting certain vegetables or seeds, sowing them, planting them close to a vine, grapes. They have to have a certain distance between them. Otherwise, you get into the problem of kilayim. Kilayim means a lot of things. There's kilayim between animals, right? You cannot mate two very different animals. You cannot have a ox and a donkey plow together. You cannot wear a garment that has kilayim or shatnez, which is wool and linen. When you buy a new suit, you have to check these things out. All of this is called kilayim, forbidden mixtures. So some things are forbidden for you to benefit from. If it's in a garment and it's only in the back of the collar, where they usually put shatnez, or in the buttons, or in the pants, in some areas of the pants, the reason why they use wool and linen is to make it stronger. Linen is strong. So when they combine the two, especially where the buttons are, they don't want the buttons to fall, expensive suits, they'll do that. Or in the back of the collar. So if it's not a big deal, if it's only a little bit of shatnez, somebody can remove it for you, you can wear the suit. If it's too much shatnez, you might as well throw it away. Right? If you remove everything, you're left with nothing. So you need to check this out when you're buying a suit, if it has shatnez or not, because it's forbidden to wear. That's also called kilayim. But the kilayim that I'm talking about is with vegetables, or with the vine, or with the grafting of two types of trees, which is, all of this is forbidden to do.
So what is the actual distance of the grapes in here? If I have a vine here and I want to grow, let's say, a watermelon here, does that be, what's the distance?
It all depends on what you're growing. It depends if there's a fence in between. There's quite a few halachot in maintaining several inches, depending on what's involved, between the various vegetables. But it all depends on what's involved. So I couldn't give you, the exact measurements, because it all depends. If it's for example, if it's in Israel, where you have to be concerned about it,